Thankful. I think that it shows a monumental step for mental health and people recognizing the importance of it.
That's a great idea. It was keeping my peers as well as myself safe from the COVID-19.
Great way to keep people engaged. I mean, everybody's life is in upheaval right now. I mean, we do what we have to do.
I was concerned initially that peers might disengage. They may be a little bit disappointed in not getting our face-to-face sessions that we normally get.
A little bit hesitant, honestly. Do you feel like face-to-face is working with our peers better than over the phone?
Some people might be uninterested, not interested in doing it.
Overall, I think it was a great way for us to continue to work.
None of them wanted to do it.
I believe everybody was very relieved.
Majority was scared.
Initially, it was met with resistance and disappointment on their end.
I only have two that are doing it now.
Two of my peers said, I'm not interested in doing phone sessions or telehealth at all.
For me, a lot of my peers and myself, we've done phone time.
They was concerned about being isolated, especially dealing with mental health issues. Isolation can be a big trigger for many of them.
Honestly, the comfort of having that other outlet and knowing that somebody's there, everybody just needs like immense amount of support, emotional support, and a lot of validation for what's, their feelings and what's going on right now. So I didn't have to do too much encouraging. Everybody was pretty much on board with it.
One of the things that I've been trying to do with the telehealth people is keep them on the same schedule that they were with when we were meeting face-to-face to try to have some normalcy.
I think for me, it's been really important to collaborate with the peer to try to come up with some creative ways to connect with each other.
Letting them feel like they're really in charge of that, communication, they're really in charge of that session, which is what we're supposed to be doing anyways. So, and I find that when they feel like they got to pick the goals and they really got that input, that they do tend to engage more than if you're just kind of talking and they're not talking. I mean, you really, to get them to go, you really got to make them feel like they're the boss.
One in particular that I found, especially with the peers that initially were not interested in telehealth or phone services, I just make impromptu phone calls. It kind of showed them that, I'm still there for them, even though we are going through this crisis situation.
I have noticed, honestly, the best method for this is doing the smaller phone conversations.
I found that utilizing shorter sessions more frequently has been helpful. Like I said, you might be able to get 2 sessions in one day just by setting a goal, then following up on it. And, it gives them a little bit of accountability.
We're more on the phone now, and that's helping them overcome their anxiety with the isolation and the COVID-19.
Did ask them to do more days a week. I normally see my people for a little bit longer and shorter duration because I normally only work for 3 days. So when I asked them that, it was overall kind of a mutual agreement that the shorter time was better.
What I have found was completely the opposite of what really I had thought would happen. And they were very grateful for the phone call. I think it's important to use discretion with that. Some peers may not be comfortable with impromptu phone calls.
Do you think that if you're not consistently reinforcing with the recovery questions and using the language and going through, they're going to get bored on the phone and they're going to get bored pretty quick?
Honestly, a lot of my conversations right now have been more or less emotional support dealing with the COVID. I had a peer that was very upset who has an animal who also has difficulty reading. It does not have the ability to read and understand it. So I've looked up, not on telehealth, but over the phone and read verbatim to her what, the veterinarian association was saying about the animals and catching COVID. And just statistics and looking up phone numbers is something I've had to do a lot,
A couple of the strategies I've used, and this is something I've done face to face, but it's also been really effective over the phone, is selecting some type of self-help book or an article regarding mental health or physical health, and having the peer read out loud, if they're able to read out loud an article or a chapter out of a book, and having time to discuss the topic. What did I learn from it? What did they learn from it?
Just know our favorite little rap plan. I think working over the phone is a great time to revisit this, especially because everyone is coping with COVID-19. So I have decided to utilize this to just revisit and have them work on it, something easy. Mine were familiar with this. I don't think we've done it in maybe over a year. So this is something that I did utilize.
We make a list. If someone is going through something, we do the pros and the cons. I say, okay, so you're going to pick a pro, I'm going to pick a pro, and we'll go through the whole list of pros and cons, but we're sharing this activity together, so it won't seem like it's just the peer doing everything. We turn it into a game.
Certainly, I've used pros and cons lists that for big important decisions they may be facing at this time, financial decisions, relationships, even if they are interested in changing providers. Pros and cons are always a good idea.
Fortunate for me, they do have a lot of things that we were currently working on before this happening, and it's just kind of following up with some of those goals, looking into some new ones, revisiting some old ones that we hadn't done. And I have been working a lot on coping. I just think that right now with everyone's situation, because I've heard people that I supervise say, well, I couldn't really think of a goal to work on. And I'm like, well, there's a whole bunch of mental health recovery and coping if it's in there, which really relates to just what's going on in society right now.
I can, with the emotional support, I can honestly say I have planned with my peers over the phone shopping trips, making sure they have the list of what they need, making sure they have the appropriate, mask. Do they have everything in their house for the month? Just calling and checking on them, just simply calling and checking goes above and beyond for these people, knowing that somebody else is there and to support them. A lot of the peers that in my experience that I have no family. They have nobody. So, just taking that extra step and letting them know that there's somebody that cares is, something that they're thankful for.
Actually, I have been able to do pretty much the same things. But what I had been doing, at least in the beginning of it, was the guided meditations. And that really helped a lot. Because it was great stress management, which is what everybody needed when all of this started. And my peer in the CRR, I had them print out the scripts of the 30, 2 scripts of 30 guided meditations, and I taught him how to lead them, and he started leading them with the other residents there.
Another thing I've, kind of explored is especially if you're kind of running low on things to talk about, just going over their IRP with them and reminding them, these are your goals. This is what we have set forth for you to work on. What would you like to work on today? It kind of provides some clarification on what you're really intended to be working on, as well as providing some focus for the session.
I think sometimes when you have experience with the activities and what your peers' goals are, it's easier to pull that out then, because right away I was like, oh, well, let's do individual advocacy today. And we talked about how she should consult her doctor about those concerns. And then we talked about, what are some things she could do to alleviate the pain that she was experiencing before she could go to a doctor. So I do think if you don't know the activities that well, I suggest getting out that big binder that Michelle gave us in training and set it beside you in your home office so that you can go through and pull those out quickly.
I try to turn everything into a fun activity to keep them engaged while on the phone or video.
It's more or less just like convincing them that there's more to talk about. Whenever you're doing the multiple small phone conversations daily, it kind of gives them room to breathe. They're able to on their own work some things out, call you back with, maybe they're feeling better, maybe they're still not where they need to be. As far as engaging, just being a good listener and knowing when to respond, knowing when your response is wanted and needed, trying to find some type of common ground, common interest. That's kind of how I do it.
I kind of give some time and space to let the peers work on goals as if it were a face-to-face session. So, I think it's appropriate to, if they like to do journaling, give them an opportunity to write in a journal entry and a journal topic related to their goals. You can have a set time or an open-ended time frame and give them the opportunity to write. And then if they choose to share, they're welcome to. But if not, they've still, put some effort into working on what's important to them.
Because I usually ask, first question, how was your day? And if I didn't get something right away that I thought we could work on, pull a goal out to focus on, I usually then just suggest, I'll go through their goal list and I'll suggest, which one sounds good to you to work on today? Positive
affirmations, you can always do them, whether you're face-to-face, whether you're over the phone. They can write it down, you can write it down. They can write it on Post-it notes.
Right now, working on self-esteem goals. People are stuck at home, isolated, either by themselves or, they're just watching TV, basically. I had my one say she slept all day in bed. I was like, well, we all know that that's not healthy.
Honestly, laughter, making somebody feel comfortable with you, just listening, allowing them to tell you what they're comfortable with at first, making sure they understand what peer support is, and just letting them know you have somebody here for you, and just support. Yeah. One of the big barriers I have is a lot of my peers are older. They either don't know how to necessarily use the telehealth or the FaceTime, the video, or they don't have smartphones. That's one thing.
Like I said, my clients happen to be older. They don't want to be on the phone for a long period of time.
So some of the barriers that I've encountered with using telehealth and phone sessions, especially with wellness goals or social networking goals that involve getting out into the community, taking a walk for exercise, at this time are no longer possible. So I've kind of tried to gear more my role in this process as accountability. So what I've found is, you can talk, have a phone session in the morning and say, hey, what would you like to work on today? It might be a short session, but they can come up with a task. You can collaborate to come up with an idea, such as taking a walk, a short walk, with a pet, with a friend, and then calling them to follow up on that later in the day.
Well, my peer at the CRR, I had to do some convincing with his on-site staff. They didn't want to allow it at first, and I had to kind of explain that they would then be denying him services.
The only barriers are my peers behind the wall. The tensions are very high in such a confined environment. They live in close quarters. There's only one prison so far where there's a glass, where I'm behind the glass. The rest is, when I describing it to you, the room myself and the inmate is in is probably the size of your bathroom. Your bathroom may be bigger than that room. What I've been doing to stay engaged, my peers, they call me, because of course I can't call them, engage over the phone. Once they're released, they'll call me, let me know they're out, because some of them they are letting out early.
One of the barriers for newer CPSs or people actually taking on new peers over the phone is like getting past that, not being able to see somebody face to face.
The new ones that comes up on my list, I've drafted a welcome letter, and in it I tell them a little about myself and the services Peer Star offers, along with Peer Star's brochure and the company card, and I put my cell phone number on the back of the card, and I also have Walnut Street, which is Philadelphia Peer Star address. So they have the option, if they would like the services, they can call me or they can write a letter, and I respond that way.
I think because this is all new for everybody, you know, I think we need to keep in mind that we never know what to expect. You know, you may expect that, oh, they're not interested. They may even tell you, I'm not interested in doing this. This is not what I'm used to. I'm not comfortable with this change. But, you know, what I've found is, you know, even the ones that were resistant to it, they end up calling me for support. You know, so you never really know what to expect. So keep an open mind, give them the credit, give yourself credit, and, you know, try not to be so hard on this process. Keep an open mind about it. I think that'll go a long way.
Now, that's been a struggle kind of for me.
Well, I don't know if you're going to want to include this, but I've actually moved my office into my bathroom for the times that I am doing over the phone calls.
So I personally have found that there is, and I'll be honest, a temptation to get distracted by pop-up texts, pets, emails that come across.
All right, so I do take care of a preschooler, and I find that if I schedule in the morning, well, he's still kind of groggy and he's just in that I want to watch cartoons and eat my breakfast phase, that I can get work done without being constantly interrupted.
That's my granddaughter. My kids are grown. Grandma, I need this. I have to stop. Okay, baby, here I come.
You know, he's situated, my son, and, you know, kind of being able to step away and do what I need to do.
And when you have a child, you have to make sure, okay, she needs to eat breakfast, she needs her snack, she needs her lunch, you got to prep the dinner.
I don't have kids, so that's not an issue.
Ideally, I like to end my work usually an hour or so before lunch. Work in the evening when they're back to, I'm kind of like, you know, it's bath time, I'm going to wind down. Or when my husband comes home, he can take him outside. That allows me to get work done.
I would encourage you to, you know, take care of your pets, take them out to outside, get them fed before you do these sessions.
A lot of times my phone calls aren't planned, so it's like it's a rush. You know, you want to give them the privacy, so it's like I'm hopping up 10 flights of steps and getting into my bathroom to, you know, make sure that it's quiet and, you know, that you can give them the respect that they deserve.
Try to stay focused. They deserve all of our attention. We're being paid for this service.
I don't think it's very feasible sometimes to try and work like a block shift when you're working from home with children, especially children under a certain age, because I think that's asking a little too much of them too sometimes with their attention spans.
One of my peers calls me and I can answer the phone. I will take the call right then and there, not only for the hour situation, but if my peers are reaching out to me, then I know that at that moment they need to talk. We're all stuck in the house, and if I'm here and I can do it, I will. So.
You're doing this along with work, reading all these chapters from school, making sure your project is completed, but I'm getting through it.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody for keeping the show going.
I just try to tell them that I suggest to them to try to keep it the same schedule, because a lot of them are worried about just how to schedule it, and they're worried about hours, and that doesn't have to change.
That person there to provide the support so that they're not going to relapse, so that they continue to work on those goals for the betterment of, their situation.
I've personally found, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that at least a couple of my peers have been more engaged.
I think the services are great with this.
So I think it's just providing the support while this is happening and helping them kind of deal with the situation.
But no, this is just something that we're going to have to, learn. Everybody's different, just like our IRPs are tailored to our peers. Our phone services are going to have to be tailored to each person individually, each CPS individually.
We're adjusting and we're having a good time with this. We're not allowing this to deter us or to stop us from what we need to do to benefit that peer to succeed in his or her journey.
It's a learning experience, but it is a positive one. So I'm excited. I'm glad to be part of the team.